Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in the studio with us this evening is a phenomenal woman that I recently had the pleasure of connecting with across social media lines. She is a mother. She's a podcast host. In fact, I had the pleasure of being on her show. And but her most important title, her most important attribute is that she's a woman of God, and she's taking time out of a very busy schedule to hang out with us for a little while, with the hopes of sharing a piece of herself, piece of her story, a piece of her journey, hoping to inspire, encourage, and uplift us, especially when it comes to dealing with the challenges and adversities of life, as we all deal with in some fashion or form. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you our very special guest this evening, Coach Tammy Nicole. Tammy, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, Joseph. I'm excited to
Hey,
be here.
I'm excited to have you. And as I just shared, I had a wonderful time on your show just recently. So it's great to now be able to invite you over to my space and
Yeah,
do it all over again and have some good conversation. I know what you're going to have to share this evening is going to be a blessing to everybody. So I'm excited about that. Been looking forward to this day. So again, thank you for being a part of this with me and taking the
thanks for
time
the
out to do
invite.
so. Absolutely, absolutely. So before we jump into our segments, I do want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Kind
Ooh.
of give our audience a taste of who is Coach Tammy Nicole.
I always find this section just difficult because I don't like to, what they say, shine on myself or boast on myself pretty much at all. But I'm a mom. I am a coach. I am originally from Los Angeles, California, currently residing in Atlanta. I am a mental health therapist, what I say by trade and degree and credentialed. However, I've been coaching for the last 3.5 years. I've been coaching women in this self love space, helping women understand that they have to know their own value outside of success being a stamp of value. So we have a lot of people who are super, super successful in life and they're crying at home at night because they don't really know who they are. It's like I went after a
Mm,
skill set, I went after the monetary items, but my inside, my soul ain't right, and it's like I don't know who I am. And so I just basically teach them how to develop an unshakable self-love experience where they learn how to have healthy boundaries, where they learn how to, do more than cope. Coping just keeps us in a space of not dealing with the root. And I like to pull the roots up and replant a new tree.
mm. Love that. Love that. That is a wonderful approach and wonderful work that you're doing. In fact, it was one of the things that I noticed about you when I came across your profile initially, and that was struck my interest and curiosity. I said, you know what, I like what she's doing. The kind of the path that you're
Yeah.
on, and it was a big factor in me reaching out to connect with you. I thought you'd be a great fit,
Oh,
and I just
thank you.
reemphasize that just in what you just said and in your passion for helping women and just pouring into the importance of establishing value and worth and having an
Yeah.
appreciation for that and all of those things definitely critical. So again, this is going to be
Yeah.
awesome. I'm sure of that. So
Yeah. I
so
just
with
like
that
women
said,
to
we
understand like we're caretakers, right? So we're the natural
mm-hmm,
nurturers or what have you. But a lot of us are always pouring from an empty cup. We
mm-hmm,
don't realize that we need to refill in order to be able to continue to pour. And so it's my passion and pursuit to teach them you can still pour into yourself in order to pour out of you to other people. You know what I mean? Like God talks about it all the time. He'll get a blessing to you in order to get one through you. But if you aren't soil, good soil to be put into, it's like it's kind of hard to do it. You know what I mean?
yep, absolutely, absolutely. And while I know your work specializes in focusing on women, men have the very same issue,
Yeah.
and it's an equally challenging thing, especially with men. We tend to think we're too tough, we're too strong, we don't let stuff get to us. But the reality is, if you whether you do the research or just being a man myself and understanding how that dynamic, there are many of us who, as you say, we stretch ourselves too thin. We try to
Yeah.
pour from an empty cup because again, we're not allowing ourselves to deal with the root, as you said, the root going on inside of us and the
Yeah.
challenges that we're having and things of that nature, and just really embracing the significance of what it means to honor your mental health and do the things and practices, if you will, to sustain that peace, that peace of mind. And as you and I both, it all begins with that relationship that you have with God, because He's the center of core of all of it.
All
But
of it. Yeah.
nevertheless, what you're doing is a phenomenal work, and I'm glad that there are people like you in the world, taking such matters seriously like that and wanting to pour into other people. So that's great stuff. Great stuff. So
Absolutely.
yes, so absolutely. So Tammy, whenever I bring my guest onto the show, and they're coming on to share their stories, to share their journeys, one of the things that I like to do is to take a few moments of reflection on where that story, where that journey actually begins. And the reason why I like to
Mm.
do this is because I believe a lot of things that we do in our present day stem from experiences or encounters that we have earlier on in life, as far back as childhood days.
Absolutely.
And while in our childhood days, we don't necessarily, understand, why these things are happening, or why this particular person or that person was significant in our lives. If you really take a moment to think back on that, you find out, what I'm doing now, or what my passion is now, what my desires are now, what my pursuits are now. A lot of that is connected to those experiences of the past, good and not so good, if you will,
Hmm.
but they were necessary for me to go through in order to be catapulted into where I am today. Case walking in your purpose, doing the works that God has created you specifically to do. And so, with that said, I want to take that reflection moment with you and ask you, if you would, to share with us, what was it like for you growing up? Fond memories that you have about the challenges that come to mind. You can share those as well. Kind of give us the foundational basis of where your story begins.
Oh, we. Okay, so like, how far are we really going? Um, I grew up in a single parent household. My mom and my sister. Um, our family was like really closely. My mother was, church, Jesus. That's all she preaches. Her phrase was, "Do you know anybody like Jesus?" Like, that would be, matter of fact, I put it on her tombstone when she passed away, because she would say it to a stranger, she would say it to, to us all the time. And so having a biblical foundation was super important for her, for us, right? So I grew up in church. I grew up, my relationship with my dad was what I call shaky. Shaky because I knew who he was, but he wasn't as present as he should have been. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there were The one thing I can always recall is that he would forget my birthday, and so birthdays became important to me. I mean, I can remember birthdays from friends from elementary school to this day. Like, oh, so and so birthday today. Oh, so and so. Like, birthdays became a thing for me because he forgot mine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a promise to myself, I would never, I'm never going to forget someone's birthday. It's like the first thing I really ask when I start actually cultivating real relationships. It's like, I want to know, because I feel like that day is, so coined for you. Like, it's your day. It's the only day that's yours. It doesn't matter if there's 50 other people with the same birthday. It's still your day. And so it made me always want to make people feel special on their day. Then the other thing that kind of like cultivated like who I am, like that made me start being more attentive to people. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, your birthday is super special. But when I grew up, I used to want to be a pediatrician. It's like, oh, be a pediatrician. My godfather, who recently passed away, was my pediatrician. And when I was like maybe 7, 6, between 6 and 7, I used to, go into the office and be like, this my office, this gonna be my office one day. This gonna be, I used to say that all the time, like this gonna be my office one day. And he was like the person that would all like I looked up to, like, I'm gonna be a doctor. I'm gonna be a doctor. That's all I would say, like growing up. And
Mhm.
then when I got to like high school, like most of my friends would come to me for like advice. I don't care what it was about. It can be their relationship stuff. It can be issues with their parents. It can, issues with each other. They just would. I would be the one to get all the questions, and I would provide, what I thought was accurate advice. And
Mhm.
so I didn't pay that any attention, to be honest. And then I came to Clark, Atlanta for undergrad, and my initial like major was bio pre med. Again, I was gonna go be a pediatrician. Like I'm taking over my dad's office, and so I got in and I took my first psychology course, general psych 101, whatever they want to call it today. And I was like, oh no, it's time to switch my major. I'm going, like, this is what I'm doing right here. I'm gonna go talk to
Mhm.
people. This is like where my gift kind of lies. And I did exactly that. I switched it from bio pre-med to psych pre-med because I was like, I'm still gonna be a doctor. I might, maybe I'll just be a psychiatrist, like I just was like, I just gotta change direction.
Mhm.
And was that freshman year? No, senior year of high school, I got struck with an illness. We didn't know what it was at all. I just got struck with some pain. I couldn't really wear clothes. I couldn't really walk around. And my godfather, who was my doctor at the time, he was like, oh no, we got to figure this out. I mean, like he was calling all his friends. Like I was going from every hospital, like, we got to figure this out. They could never figure it out. We started doing holistic things. Um, what is it called? Asian medicine, um, like magnets, acupuncture, like like I'm talking about, we were doing everything under the sun to try to figure out what's wrong with me. Whatever, after acupuncture and wearing this magnet thing for about 3 to 4 months, the pain just kind of, it just left. And it was like literally right in time for me to go to school.
Mm.
So I go to school and I'm like super excited because I'm in college now, blah, blah, blah. Get to Atlanta, freshman. I want to say it was my first semester. Towards the end of it was my first semester because it was September the 18th. The pain popped back. They rushed me to Emory and they were like, oh, ultimately, you have lupus. And I was like, oh, what?
Mm.
What's that? You know? And my whole world like stopped because they really didn't explain it well. And I'm a student. So what's the first thing I'm going to do? Google, right? I'm going to go Google. And my
Mhm.
whole world stopped. I was like, I'm going to die. Like, and I just started giving up on everything because I was like, this is it. Like, this thing say you don't live through this, you know, average lifespan 5 to 7 years. I'm like, I'm 18. And I'm
Mm.
reading that I got 5 to 7 years to live from a diagnosis. So I'm just gonna go pack it up, go back home, and live my life the way I want to live it, you know. And I packed up to go home. My mama said, "You're not quitting school." There was a thing called transient student where you can go to school at a different. You can stay enrolled at your school and go to another school and take classes as long as the classes were equivalent to each
Mhm.
other so that you can continue to get credits. So my mom was like, no, you can come home, but you still you going to school. Like
You going to
this
school?
is not what we doing. And so I did that. And in that mist, I went to school and I stayed like 2 years. I want to say I stayed like 2 years. But I did everything and I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back. But when I went back, my mom had gotten re-diagnosed. Well, she had had breast cancer when I was in high school, and then it went into remission. And then when I was getting ready to go back to college for that last little year or what have you, her cancer metastasized and it was like in different spots of her body. So now we're dealing with
Mm.
her being sick. And so she made me come to school, all that wonderful stuff. And then when I got back, I was like, just don't die on me. Like, at least see me graduate. Like, I was like so close to graduation. I was like, can you just hold out to graduation? And she didn't. She died on Valentine's Day. And then I graduated 2 months, 3 months later, May. She died in February. I graduated in May. So she didn't make it. But, I learned a lot during the process. You know what I mean? Like, it was definitely a lot. But being in the psychology field, it was a little beneficial for me. I was able to kind of like understand the process of grief before really experiencing it that close to home.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Well, let me first start off by saying thank you for your transparency and sharing what you shared so early on in our show. I definitely appreciate that. And obviously, that's not a easy conversation to have when you're talking about losing loved ones, and especially a mom,
Yeah.
and just the initial challenges of school. Starting off, but one of the things that I did want to unpack that which is why I like to have those that beginnings conversation, because as you were talking, it was connecting with me right away why you do what you do.
Hmm.
Of course, the very first thing that stood out to me was your speaking about birthdays, because and it's interesting because most people, if they would have had the experience like you did in regards to birthday, where a person who should have been one of the closest people to you, in this case your dad, constantly forgetting your birthday, most people would have had the mindset of, what, when it comes to birthdays, I'm not even into birthdays.
Hmm.
It's not important to me because because of the painful moment that it
Experience.
surfaces
Yeah.
and experiences in that. You, however, took what would have, from a worldly perspective, that would have been your approach, but you actually took a godly perspective and said, what, I'm of that which was negative in my life, and I'm gonna make it positive in the lives of other people. So as you said, when I make connections and meet people, I made sure that I remembered their birthday. I made sure that I let them know, even if nobody else was letting them know, that I thought that their birthday mattered. And
Yeah.
so I think that that is such a selfless, such a compassionate, such a wonderful thing for you to take a hurt of you and use it as a blessing to someone else. But that also aligns with what it means when you start walking in your calling, when you're walking in your purpose, because even though you might have not understood it as at that early age, what was going on with that, I look at it and I say this was God preparing you to take a pain, to take a dark
Hmm.
season, to take a moment that wasn't pleasant for you, and he uses that and flips it around so you can again be a gift, be a blessing to someone else.
Yeah.
That's how he works. That's the dynamic of it. So that was the first thing that jumped out at me when you just started off saying that. I was like, oh, well, this is easy why she does what she does. And then of course when you had your thoughts about I wanted to be a pediatrician, and then but prior to that, you had people in school always asking you for advice, always asking your thoughts, so for people to even come to you like that, is a sign that they had to have trusted or thought that you would have a sound, reasonable approach to whatever it is that they brought to you. It doesn't mean that you were an expert in any one particular field, but there was something about your presence that made them feel like they could trust you with, again, with their vulnerabilities, with their struggles, and that you would offer up to them some level of solution or some way of processing it all, which I'm sure you did as best as you could then. But again, we fast forward to today, and here you are doing what? Coaching people and helping them deal with such things, helping them understand their value and their worth and all of those things. there's a connector to all of that. This wasn't just some random thing that was going on in your life. It wasn't by accident. This was God setting you up. He was preparing you for what he ultimately um, had in store for you to do later on. Even though you didn't even go on to be a pediatrician, I didn't even dismiss that because you focus on mental health. So yeah, I don't think every doctor has to necessarily be what we traditionally see as the doctor that's wearing the white coat and in the hospital and all that. In many ways, as a coach, you are a doctor. You are helping to heal people. That's what doctors do. The last time I checked, you diagnose, you check the symptoms, and
Yeah.
you offer up a prescription of healing for that to facilitate that along, which is what you do in your space. So it's like you're still living out that original dream of being a doctor. We don't call it pediatrician, but you still doctoring, and you're just
Yeah.
doing it in a different, unique
Capacity.
way.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. So all of that to me is just phenomenal how that all lays out. And again, we don't think about stuff like that early on in life, but it's very easy, as you've shared just in these few moments, to make a connection, and it makes total sense why you had to do, and what, even up to your mom passing away at right before a pivotal moment in your life of you reaching a graduation, a milestone in life that would want their parents, to be present for. That also, is a pain point in your personal life that you can use to be of help to somebody else in processing, as you shared earlier, dealing with grief. How do
Yeah.
I process and work through that? You wouldn't be relatable in that regard if you had never grieved over something. If something
Yeah.
hadn't hit you in a grieving, deep kind of way, you wouldn't be able to connect and relate on the level that you're doing right now. So you had to go through situations like that and others to prepare yourself for this very moment. So again, appreciate you sharing and being transparent. This is really good stuff and really valuable, and it does connect the dots as to how God uses our prior experiences, our prior encounters to lead us up to the purpose that He has set forth for us in life moving forward. So good stuff, good stuff. And so, Tammy, when as you already shared, so you've shared some pretty heavy things that you've dealt with, and and as we go into adulthood, that doesn't change. We encounter more and more experiences, some good, and every now and then, of course, we get hit with some storms, and even in the midst of those storms, sometimes a storm hits us in a way that kind of knocks us off our feet.
Mhm.
Sometimes that storm will hit us in a way where, in that moment, we find ourselves questioning, is there any way for me to get through this? How can I overcome it? How am I going to work my way out of this? Even if I'm normally somebody that's good. I mean, you said it yourself. People come to me to solve problems. People ask me what to do. But what a lot of people don't understand is that when you're the problem solver person, when you are the encourager person, what do you do when it's your turn? When you got the problem? What do you do when you need the encouraging word? And who do you go to? Who does the encourager go to be encouraged? Who does the problem solver go to when they got a problem that they can't figure out how to solve it? And so, with that said, tell us about a time that's exactly where you felt like you were at. You were dealing with a situation that you didn't have an answer to. You were dealing with a situation that you were struggling to be encouraged about. What was that experience like for you, and what was ultimately the turning point when you began to see some light at the end of the tunnel and coming up out of that?
Honestly speaking, I always go to God for everything. So he's always the first response. Um, but you mentioned the encourager not needing encouragement. So that is always a struggle because a lot of times, even in our friend circles, they don't feel like you ever need anything
Mm-hmm.
because you're the one always giving everything. And so for me, I had to just have my person. You know what I mean? It's like I have my person. This is who I go to for everything. When there's a struggle, when there's an issue, and they're going to always be there to listen. Um, they may not always know what to say as far as like what to do. And I think that's it with anything. There are sometimes I don't know what to say when it comes to what to do for everybody that comes for a request or what have you. Sometimes God is the only answer. And, just waiting for whatever his answer is. We may not like it. We don't like the
Yeah.
waiting period, but um I mean, man, I've been through a lot of stuff in my adult years as far as like not seeing or knowing the answer. When I went through a divorce, it was like I'm going through this. I don't know what the answer is. All I knew was that I had to get out. It wasn't that the relationship was like catastrophic or tumultuous and, all of the stuff that everybody thinks is the only okay to get a divorce. For me, wholeheartedly, which is also why I help women understand how to love themselves, is I had the low self-esteem when I got married. I didn't love myself then. So then you choose differently when you don't love yourself. You just kind of choose
Mm,
haphazard. And it's not necessarily that that person is a bad person. It's just more so he's not your person. You know what I mean? Like when you don't love you, you just kind of choose whatever, right? Oh, they like me. Okay, cool. Okay. Oh, so we low vibration each other, and this is just gonna work because you're a cool person. I don't see nothing wrong with you. Okay, cool. But when I discovered me, I had to get a divorce because I discovered myself. It was like, oh, this doesn't fit.
mm.
Um, and had nothing to do with him. But it was, I always question, what are people going to think? I'm getting a divorce. I'm not supposed to get a divorce. Everybody's going to talk about the fact that what went wrong, blah, 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 blah. Everybody wants to be in your business. And it's like, nothing went wrong. Something decided to go right. I decided to discover who the heck I
Mm.
am. And who I am is not in alignment with who he is or where he's going in life. And unfortunately, I have to exit stage left.
Wow, wow. Again, thank you for sharing it, being transparent in what you just shared. But I love the way that you shared it because oftentimes when I have this point of the conversation, people, will talk about I had this event, I had that event, and of course, some of those events have included divorce. But your way of speaking to it is powerful because, as you said, it wasn't about that, something traumatic was going on, like, abuse or,
Infidelity.
an
Yeah.
affair
Hmm.
or anything like that. You're saying I had to part from a situation. In this case, this situation was marriage. I had to part from a situation because I had arrived at a point where the light bulb came on, and I said, you know what? I I have more value than what I've been giving myself credit for. I have more worth than what I've been giving myself credit for. I've been settling. I've been taking low. I've been going along just to get along instead of saying to myself, no, no, I have a
Yeah.
standard. And there's no wavering in that standard. This is what it is. And I just realized that I haven't been honoring that. And now that I'm in this place, in order for me to hold true to that, I got to let some things go. And in this case, one of the things you had to
Yeah.
let go was a
Yeah.
marriage. And I'm sure it didn't even stop at that. That you probably perhaps even had a few
Friends. Yep.
friends or
Hmm.
acquaintances that you had to let go
Absolutely.
because the worth factor was different. I saw myself differently. I started to appreciate and love me a little bit more than I had in the
Yeah.
past, and that is a powerful testimony. That is a powerful transformation that I think a lot of people go through in various respects, but you know this is definitely a unique situation how you did that in the midst of marriage, and and again putting yourself in a situation where this decision meant that not only did I have to process through people questioning what will they
Yeah.
think you
Because back
know
then,
about my marriage not
right,
working.
you're a people pleaser, right? When you have that low self-esteem and stuff, you're a
Yes,
people pleaser. So I was so concerned
people
about what
pleaser.
everybody else was gonna say and what they were gonna think. And I was like, oh, maybe I should stay. And I was like, you know what? No. You discovering you. So I said I got a divorce because I discovered myself. It wasn't about him or what he did or
Yeah.
and all of those things. And yes, there are things that he did that I didn't like or that didn't per se align. And when I tell that to people, they always say, well, you couldn't bring him along with you, you couldn't teach him, this you couldn't do this and the third. Alignment is key. to life. And if you are out of alignment, you don't force the alignment just because you already had made the decision. Now, could
Mm-hmm.
God make the change and change everything? He absolutely could. But God doesn't force us to do anything that we don't want to do. You got to be a willing participant.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so for me, I was on a different trajectory. I was on a different plan. I had to go, I needed to be by myself. I needed
Mm-hmm.
to handle the thing all by me, all by myself. And that's what needed to take place. I mean, a book came out of it. Matter of fact, two books came out of it, um, because I was also learning. I don't want to call it divine order, but I was learning the process of building relationship, significant relationship, and how DNA does matter. It's not just picking what you want to pick or choosing who you want to choose. Like the alignment starts with the DNA. And that's what I discovered. Because the funny thing is, when we were getting married, my daddy told me, don't marry him. And now, mind you, like I said, I know my daddy, the relationship was just rocky, but he was more present after my mom passed than he was before, while she was living. And so he was like, "You can't marry him." And I was like, "Why?" He was like, "Because he has no ambition." And I'm an ambitious person. I'm an entrepreneur. I kind of go for what I want. And he was like, he has no ambition. And I was like, "Oh, daddy, but I'd rather build with somebody than, go make what I need to make and then get somebody and they just kind of come along. I don't know if they want me or they want my money.
Mm-hmm.
That was the conversation he and I was having. And he said, "Mark my words." And so I was like, "Oh, whatever, I'm gonna do what I want to do. You just don't want. So I went ahead and did what I wanted to do. But after the fact, I realized he was right. He was right because he was my father who understood the type of man that was necessary to take care of his daughter. So when you
Mm-hmm.
talk about arranged marriages and why the daddy goes out to find the husband for his daughter, it's because he's finding himself. He's finding his replacement. So he knows what's necessary to be
Mm-hmm.
embedded in the core character of that person in order to take over where he's leaving off. And if you think about the Bible and how marriages happen and how the daughter's supposed to stay home until she is handed off to that husband to take over the responsibility of covering, right? So it was more so like, oh, okay, well, I started to see, yeah, I was out of alignment. I wasn't in the right covering. I was doing, I just did what I wanted to do. So DNA does matter. Like your daddy, for the ladies, who's picking, you're picking based upon his character, not based upon his behaviors, not what he did to you, not what he didn't do, not how he didn't show up, but the characters and the characteristics that he embedded into your DNA that's inside of you. So when I got to know who I was, that ambitiousness was a mandatory. It's mandatory for me to have a man that has ambitions. Like I can't do like if you don't have it, you can't connect with me because you can't push me to the levels that I need to be pushed, and you can't slow me down when I need to be slowed down because you don't understand it. You don't understand the drive.
Mm. Love that. Love that. And you said basically, like I said, you got to the point where that became non-negotiable for you. It's like this is who I am. This is what I do. And it wasn't
Yeah,
about I'm having it my way. And
yeah,
that's it. Wasn't so much. I didn't look what you just said. I didn't look at it like some relationships are like that. Well, I'm gonna do what I want to do because you didn't vibe like that. It was more
no,
about again. It was about the standard.
yeah,
And when the standard is there, I'm not going to waver from that. And it's a respectable the
yeah,
standard of like what we might in the worldly sense, talk about, oh, you just a gold digger, oh, you just think you this, or
right,
you think you that. It's again, it's understanding and appreciation, and having appreciation for your value
yeah.
and your worth. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. And people a lot of times when people have these experiences, they usually have them in places like maybe like in the workplace, for example. You get to that crossroads point where you feel like, you know what? they don't really respect me around here. They don't really appreciate my value around here. So I need to, now that I understand that, I need to go and do my own thing, where I know that I'll be valued. I know that I'll get what I'm worth, not only financially, but just in recognition in general. And then there's other areas, of course, that can transition off into. So to my listeners, I mean, you can apply Tammy's story to, doesn't even have to be about a marriage, but when that light bulb finally does come on, when that
Hmm.
trigger finally kicks in, and I don't know exactly what the, and if you please feel free to share. I don't know exactly what was that defining moment where you said, this is how I'm supposed to be. Everybody's situation is different, but I can tell you, for those of us who have I've had my own personal experience with that. When you experience that moment, when you say, you know what, this, no more of this, no
No,
more
no more
of
settling.
settling, no
Hmm.
more of going along to get along, no more of the people
No more
pleasing.
hamster wheel.
No, and don't get me wrong, we have our I know, I can just say for myself, you have your moments where you kind of slide back a little bit every now and then. You got to pull yourself back in, like, no, we can't go, because you don't want to go back to the old stuff anymore. But like you
Yeah.
said, what I have learned over the years is, just as you shared, I'm less committed to the people pleasing. I'm less committed to the going along to
Yeah,
get
no more
along.
people pleasing.
I'm more in line to embrace. You know what? If 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 where I am and what I'm trying to do bothers you, then, then perhaps it is best that you do you and I do me. Perhaps that's what it is.
Yeah.
You no longer lose sleep and stress about those kind of things anymore. Worrying about what other people think, and it transitions more into, what does God think about this? How does He feel about this? Is he proud in the growth that I'm experiencing? Is he pleased with the mindset that I'm embracing? Because if
Right.
He is, then at the end of the day,
That's all that
that's
matters.
the only approval that I need, if we were keeping it real. So again, thank you for sharing that. That's good stuff. Good stuff. And so Tammy, obviously, again, you've shared some very heavy things, and but, and as we know, storms sometimes can be heavy like that, as we've talked about some of these stories. And then sometimes storms can just be the day-to-day nuances, lifing type. With that said, what is it that when you do, and you mentioned a little bit of this earlier, you talked about prayer, but what is it like if this is one of those days where, boom, here's a moment of adversity, something's going on that I got to deal with? What is it? What is your way? What is the thing that works best for you, or the series of things that works best for you, that when you find yourself facing that challenge, a moment of adversity, that kind of helps you keep a focused mindset, keep a level head as you're processing through? What is it, what does that look like for you? What works best for you in such moments?
Honestly, it's making things practical. So, outside of praying and giving the situation to God for Him to handle it, faith without works is dead. You have to still do something, right? He's not
Mm-hmm.
doing it all on your behalf. So for me, it's I have to make it practical. And ironically, I say make it make sense. Like it all has to make sense. Um, I don't allow things to just the thought of them to like overcloud my judgment on what I do next. I do a lot of fact checking with the situation. Sometimes I do a lot of emotional removal from the situation, because a lot of times if we allow emotion to get involved, we make decisions that are long term with short term emotions, and I don't, that's not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, somebody make you really mad, do something, and then you decide, I'm gonna go slash their tires, or I'm gonna go do X, Y, and Z, and now you in jail because you didn't, vandalize property. Like, for that short term emotion of anger and frustration, you ended up with a longer, consequence. Like, yeah, I don't do those things. So for me, it's about removing the emotion from the equation, making it make sense, and then deciding what steps we'll take for an actual outcome that I desire.
Love that. Love that. And again, to my listeners, because many people do struggle with trying to figure out what's the health, what are healthy ways, what are practical, reasonable ways for me to deal with when I find myself facing challenges in life and adversities where I, like you said, you don't go off the rails, popping off and doing something
Yeah.
erratic, or, you don't, at the same time, you don't try to just retreat and look for short term solutions to put a band aid on the problem just to make yourself feel good in the moment. I always like to look at our stormy times, our challenges like that, to where you do have permission to feel,
Absolutely.
like I said, whether that feeling is I feel like crying, I feel like screaming out, I feel like punching a bag. You have that opportunity, that right to do that, and
Hmm.
from God's perspective, He doesn't have a problem with you doing that. It's those of us, however, who get stuck in marinating in that, and kind of drowning in those, as you said, getting drowning in that emotion, because that's when you are going to be more likely to be reckless in your behavior. This is when you're going to be more reactive to the situation
Yep.
rather than to be responsive to the
Yep.
situation. And the mindset, there's a clear difference in the mindset. It's like, once I, let me have my moment, but then once I have that moment, okay, God, what you want me to do with this? Let's
Right.
make it plain, make it simple, so that I
Real
can work this
easy.
thing out,
Hmm.
and when we say easy, yeah, we ideally, in perfect world, we would love it to be easy in terms of I don't have to do a whole bunch with it, but make it easy in terms of easy to understand, that there's no confusion, and we know that God is not
Not the
not
author
about
of
the confusion.
confusion.
He is not the author
Mhm.
of that confusion. So being in relationship with Him allows you to for Him to answer you in just the way that I spoke to. I'm gonna make it plain and simple. This is what you're gonna do. Now, that being said, don't be surprised if He hits you with some steps to do that throw you off a little bit. Not because you didn't understand what He said, but maybe because you might be a little resistant, or like, you mean you want me to do that? You you really
Yeah.
want me to go ahead and say this? You really want me to step out here and do that? Something that is totally the opposite of perhaps who I am. And he's saying, yep, that's exactly what I want you to do. You asked me what you want, how to fix this. I've given you the steps. You either gonna roll with it, or you try to fly solo, and you can take this thing and blow it out of proportion and make it either drawn out longer than it needed to be, or
Yeah.
mess it up altogether. Or you can follow me and watch when we get to the end of this, how relieved, how at peace you're going to be, not only through the process, but again, at the end of it all, and how everything will work out for your good, work out exactly the way that it was supposed to be handled. So, again, I love your practical approach, and I love, and of course, you're including God in the equation of it, as you should. But you're keeping it simple, but it has the benefits that can result from it are at a maximum level, and that aligns with your whole alignment of who you are and how you operate. So, great stuff, great stuff. So,
Absolutely.
Tammy, if you had, as you reflect back on all your experiences in life, good, bad, and everything in between, if you had the opportunity to sit across the table from the younger Tammy, and be able to just offer up her some words of encouragement, some words of insight. When you think back to some of the things that she faced challenges with, and maybe didn't quite know the best way to handle such things when she was in that space where she didn't see her true worth, she didn't see her true value. She was too busy out here people pleasing and doing things like that. What would you say to her that you think would have been helpful, would have been beneficial to help her navigate life a little bit better, a little bit easier as she dealt with those challenges, as well as those who are listening? We got folks listening to this episode who are right there. They are self-proclaimed people pleasers, trying to do it, going along to get along, and they're growing tired of it. They're feeling unfulfilled. They want to reach that point to where they start to love themselves, and don't feel ashamed, or love themselves without feeling the need to apologize to anybody about that. What would those words of wisdom, that words of advice, be to them as well as to the younger Tammy?
It would be exactly that. Love you. Love you. Love you to the point where when other people love you, it's just a bonus. That's my slogan that I say today and every day. Love yourself so much that love from others is a bonus. Um, but I would talk to her and tell her, don't, whatever you want to do in life, you can do it, and do it scared. You are just as valuable as the person you are trying to get the attention and validation from. You're no different than them, and they're no better than you.
Mm.
So, as much as you want their approval, approve yourself first. As much as you want them to validate you, validate yourself first. Affirm yourself first. And then, not I'm not saying that having their applaud is, not something you should ever want, but I am saying applaud yourself first. Because when they stop applauding for you, when they stop showing up for you, you'll still be okay. Everybody is not going to be what you want them to be when you want them to be it. So when you want to, protect yourself against the heartbreak and the heartache that other people are bound to provide, because we are all human, no one's perfect. You must be prepared to take care of you first.
Mm. I love that. I love that. Um, and there's there's nuggets in that for me too, because like you said, I love when you talked about um, you know, going for things. When you're going for what you want, do it scared. I think there's some power in that, and realizing that even when you do it scared, and let's just say you have somebody in sight that you think that you'd like to be in that space that they're in, not that you're so much per se trying to compare yourself to them or quote unquote trying to be like them, but you're trying to be in that space. And to what you just said, because I've personally seen people in spaces that I'm thinking to myself, that'd be a pretty cool space to be in, and I look at them, and you spoke to this, that person is no more valuable or better than you, and you're looking at them, and I've had that. I've seen, whether you're talking about people who speak, whether you're talking about people who do shows like what you and I do, who have 10, 20 times the followers and the viewership than we do, and I'm looking at them and I'm saying, I mean, no disrespect, but you ain't doing no more than what know that I'm capable of doing. So why am I scared? Why am I acting like that what you do or where you at is so far out of reach for me? You
Hmm.
know, where did that come from? And so I think it's
Imposter syndrome.
powerful. Yes, yes, that's exactly where it comes from. But it's like, why am I feeling like that? Why am I doing that to myself? When am I going to say you
I'm
are
worthy.
worth it? You got it going on just as much as the next person, if not more in some instances. What you scared of? And then it becomes even more silly, of course, when for those of us who do have a relationship with God, and you're like, you mean all the times that God has made ways out of no way and broke down barriers for you and knocked down walls for you, and you still confused? You got the ultimate person leading the team, leading the charge for you. What you scared of? What's the worst that could happen? Are you worried about somebody telling you that oh, I knew you wasn't gonna never do this? There's gonna be people who gonna say that regardless. Whether they're gonna say it if you don't make it, and they're gonna
Right.
say it if you do make it.
That
You
part.
know,
There's
it,
always going to be
there's
somebody
always gonna
talking
be
about you.
somebody that's gonna say something. Everybody's gonna have an opinion, especially in these days and times with social media being prevalent like it is and all of that.
Yep.
Folks, everybody's gonna always have something to say. If you're broke, they're gonna have something to say. If you're balling, they're gonna have balling out of control, they're gonna have something to say. You dress
Yep.
real fancy, they're gonna have something to say. Oh, you think you all that. You dress low key, they look like they slumming. I can't win. I can't again, I can't please everybody, but that's not the goal anyway. I got to do what God has called for me to do, and again, be okay with not only His confirmation of what it is that I'm doing, but like you said, love myself enough to where when nobody else ain't loving on me, I'm okay. Love myself enough to where if somebody is loving on me, that's it's just extra.
It's extra.
It wasn't that I didn't have enough. It wasn't that I was gonna starve on love
Yep.
because you didn't tell me that you love me today.
Yep.
I wasn't gonna lack because you didn't
Yep.
applaud me today. So all of what you just said is such a powerful thing that we all need to embrace. So please, to my listeners, definitely take heed to what Coach Tammy is telling you, because she's speaking truth here, and this is valuable stuff that is immediately applicable to your lives right now. So great stuff, great stuff. Well,
Awesome.
Tammy, this has been awesome again, and I didn't expect anything different. It's been an awesome conversation once again. that you and I have had an opportunity to partake in. Being transparent and vulnerable and sharing your story. I truly do appreciate it. It's been a blessing to me as well as I know to my listeners. So I'm so grateful, so thankful for that, and know that you always have an open invite to come on the show to talk some more about some topics that definitely need our attention and speaking on and others to be a blessing and be of encouragement. But as is customary here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, before I do let you go, I want to take an opportunity to celebrate you, to acknowledge you, to love on you. So if you got anything going on right now or coming up, be it professionally and or personally, it doesn't even matter. Please share that with us. Let us know how we need to, what we need to be checking out on you with about, how to tap into products and services, whatever it is that you got going on. We want to know what is Coach Tammy up to that we need to put on blast out here. What's going on with you?
Awesome. So I do have a coaching program. It's a 12-week coaching program for moms. It's called Reclaim Your Power. And that program, I mean, it's a phenomenal program, not just because it's mine, but it's actually allowing moms to take off their super cape, put it to
Mm-hmm.
the side, and actually focus on them and reclaim their own power, their individual powers. I love that program to death. If you're interested in it, you can reach out to me at coaching at iamtammynicole.com. I have several books out on Amazon. I have a Loving Me Before I Love You journal. I have the Daddy and Me novel. I Married My Father, Understanding How DNA Plays a Part in Choosing the Right Mate. I have several different books out, and I actually have a new book that is getting ready to drop called the Self-Love Blueprint for Moms. It is a guide for eliminating and decreasing generational trauma. That is my things that I have going. You can always reach me at coaching at iamtammynicole.com or on my website at iamtammynicole.com.
All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. She told you what she got going on. A phenomenal program. So you moms tap into that. You are not going to be disappointed if you had any doubts about that. Just have an opportunity to hear Tammy speak this evening should give you a big taste of what you can expect and then some. So definitely partake in that program. Her books, offerings that she has out there, support that, and just follow her along because she's as she told you, she's an ambitious woman. She's walking in her purpose. She's God led. So she's doing it the right way. She's doing it in alignment. And so if you want to be a part of that, you want to connect with that, definitely make sure you tap into her. Don't just let this episode be your one and only experience because it can go so much further than that. And speaking of books, of course, I currently have my book out, Blessings in the Streets, special edition. So you can also pick that up on Amazon, or if you want to get an autographed copy, reach out to me directly to do so, and I'll be more than happy to give you the details on how to secure a copy of that. Because again, this is what we're trying to do. We're just trying to let God use us. We're two imperfect people, that we're just allowing God to perfect us in the way that He sees fit, that He created us specifically to do the works that He has placed inside for us to do. So we don't take that responsibility lightly, and we look forward to being able to pour into and come alongside in the lives of others. And so, with that said, for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our broadcast today, you've enjoyed the sharing of stories and being transparent and vulnerable as we have this evening, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment, because this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is all about: encouraging and inspiring, uplifting, but most importantly, reminding you that in life, if you want to make life be the most meaningful it can be at the maximum of level, it all starts with a relationship with God. And if you don't currently have a relationship with God, I'm here to tell you that today is a mighty fine day to make that happen. And I promise you, it'll be the best decision that you'll ever make because He has an unconditional love for you. He's all knowing, all powerful, so awesome, so wonderful. He wants that intimacy with you. You
Yes,
don't have to do life on your own. He didn't create us to be that way, and you don't have to take it. You don't take all those weights and burdens by yourself, carrying it all on your back, and not having that peace of mind, not having that weight taken up off you. He's willingly and openly ready to receive it all from you and just show you how magnificent and wonderful He can be for you. We're not telling you something that we heard. We're telling you something that we
that we
know
know.
firsthand from personal experiences. So, with that said, Remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and I thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. But at the same time, remember, relationship with God matters. That's the starting point. Include Him in all aspects of your life, and He will not lead you astray. He will guide your steps accordingly. He will put you in that alignment that you need to be in so that you can benefit at the highest levels in life. It doesn't mean the storms won't come, but just know that you won't have to go through them by yourself. And the mindset that you'll have in going through them will be completely different. And you'll look at storms from the standpoint of not being negative events, but and yet it'll be opportunities for growth and development, knowing that He is your caregiver, He is your covering throughout it all. So until next time, you take care of yourself. Have a great rest of your evening, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Good night.